Dumelang, welcome to Face the Nation. My name is Clement Manyathela. It's great to have you with us here on SABC News. Tonight, is South Africa still an investment destination? How much of our man-made challenges are chasing investors away? There are two significant developments in the investment space in this country. Shell's decision to divest its majority shareholding from the local South African downstream unit after more than 120 years of operation in the country, and BHP's offer to acquire one of the country's oldest mining companies, Anglo American, without its South African assets. Anglo has rejected BHP's second offer, while Shell has indicated it's not necessarily leaving because of the business environment in South Africa. But even though South Africa has more inward investments than disinvestment, there are challenges like the electricity crisis and the logistics crisis that make the operation environment difficult. So, how do we preserve this country as an investment destination? The Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana, faces the nation tonight. We'll also ask him about the NHI bill that President Cyril Ramaphosa will be signing into law tomorrow. As the man responsible for our fiscus, does he have clarity about how this policy will be funded? And then later, what happened between Shell and its longtime BEE partner, SABC Investments? SABC Investment Corporation has confirmed that it's in a dispute with Shell over the value of its 28% stake in the company. The matter has now been referred to arbitration, and this comes in the wake of the oil giant's announcement that it is divesting from the Shell downstream South Africa, which includes a network of about 600 petrol stations nationwide. SABC Investments Director Dr. Molefe Tsile joins us tonight. But first, my comment. So, President Cyril Ramaphosa will be signing the NHI bill into law tomorrow afternoon, in just less than 3 weeks before elections. The presidency says the bill directs the transformation of the country's healthcare system, essentially, to achieve universal coverage for health services, and through this, overcome the critical socioeconomic imbalances and inequalities of the past. Which is true, right? That's what the NHI is intended to achieve. But whether it will achieve that, when it will achieve that, how it will be funded, and how the funds will be protected from the looters are questions that remain. What's interesting, though, is that this bill has been sitting on the president's desk, I think, since December, and it's being signed into law just several days before elections. And maybe this has got nothing to do with elections, or maybe it has everything to do with elections. Remember at the State of the Nation address, the president said he was still looking for a pen to sign the bill?
The National Health Insurance Bill has been passed by this House, both houses, and that will provide free health care at the point of care for all South Africans, whether in the public or private health facilities. Now, the bill has arrived on my desk. I'm going through the bill. Yes, I'm looking for a pen. I'm looking for a pen.
Well, he has now found the pen several days before elections. And again, maybe it's just a coincidence. I just don't think so. In fact, even Treasury officials have been saying that there's limited scope to fund the NHI with higher taxes. But prepare yourself to hear from a lot of politicians that are going to claim that the NHI is going to come into effect soon after elections. And yes, the evolution of NHI will be gradual over many years, but it will not be promulgated all at once. But you must watch how the message about the NHI will be communicated during campaigning after tomorrow. Some are going to claim that it's going to come to reality soon after elections. But the DA as well is going to continue with its fear-mongering message about this policy. But as expected, after the president announced that he would be signing this bill, some political parties and business organizations threatened to challenge it in court. This is what the DA's leader, John Steenhuisen, said today.
The Democratic Alliance will, upon its signing into law by Cyril Ramaphosa, challenge the ANC's NHI all the way to the Constitutional Court. Our legal team was briefed months ago already and will file our legal challenge against this devastating legislation without delay. We have built up reams of correspondence, including with Ramaphosa himself, that we will enter into evidence to show that the process which led to the adoption of this bill by Parliament disregarded public input, and that the bill itself is flagrantly unconstitutional.
Now, let's be clear. I think what government is trying to achieve here is guarantee quality, accessible and affordable universal health coverage for all South Africans, which is commendable. In fact, it's a noble idea. But is the public health sector ready? The quality of health delivery in our public hospitals has been deteriorating, and one wonders if hospitals will meet the high standards required by the National Health Insurance, because many health facilities have actually been failing the norms and standards that health institutions need to comply with before the NHI is implemented. So, how ready are our facilities for NHI? How ready is the public health system? So, politicians are going to be telling us about this bill, whether it's the ANC or the DA. The implementation of this policy is going to take years, and that's what we need to remember as politicians speak to us about the bill. The implications for medical aid schemes are still not adequately clarified. There's still no clarity on funding. The DA and some business organizations are going to take this to court. So it's going to take some time. It's not going to be immediately implementable like some politicians have claimed that after the elections you can go to any clinic or go to any hospital, go to any private facility and you get those services and government will pay for it. But here's the question for you tonight. Are you thrilled that the NHI bill will be signed into law tomorrow? And what exactly does this mean for you? Please send us your WhatsApp voice notes right now on 078 459 1897. The number is there on your screen. Remember to tell us your name and surname and where you're sending the voice note from, and please keep it at 30 seconds. Alternatively, you can send us an X on @FaceTheNation SABC. After the break, we have a conversation with the Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana. Welcome back. Is South Africa still an investment destination? How much of our man-made challenges are chasing investors away? There are two significant developments in the investment space in the country. One, that's Shell's decision to divest its majority shareholding from the local South African downstream unit after more than 120 years of operation in the country. And of course, BHP's offer to acquire one of the country's oldest mining companies, Anglo American, without its South African assets. Now, the Minister of Finance, Enoch Godongwana, joins me on Face the Nation tonight. Minister, thank you so much for making time. Good evening.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
I want us to start off with what South Africans are expecting tomorrow. The President will be signing the NHI bill into law, but we still don't have clarity over how this will be funded, do we?
We do. The Act has specific provisions which provide for how it should be funded. And there's once it's become law, and once the President signs tomorrow, we will be interacting with our colleagues in health on the processes on how to proceed.
Yeah, I know the Health Department previously indicated that they expect to raise an additional 200 billion rand or so for NHI with taxes. Is that an option that is being considered?
Look, and let me put it this way. Any government program is funded through taxes. Right? So the NHI will not be an exception, except that it is structured in a different way in the form of an insurance, and a social security insurance. So we'll have to work out the modalities of how to give effect to that.
But ultimately, there will be a tax, whether it's through VAT, whether it's through income tax.
Ultimately, there will be an insurance fund, for a health insurance fund, which will, one way or the other, be funded through some form of taxation.
Mm. Is it fair to say, as things stand now, South Africa is not in a financial position to fund the NHI?
I'm not entirely sure when the people who say we're not in a financial position to fund it. What do people exactly do they mean by that?
I mean,
what is it what is it that we're going to be funding tomorrow? Let me just give you an indication. Most of these people who are making the noise, all of them have got medical aids. Government at the moment subsidizes all of those medical aids with 34 billion rand. So equity requires that sort of funding be extended to those who don't have medical aids. So the key question we have is not universal coverage, by the way, because everybody in South Africa would rock up into a hospital, in public facilities, you don't have to pay if you don't have money. Your problem is access, because people don't have access to every facility in the country.
When you look at, I mean, the signing is tomorrow, but it's going to be phased over time. So is it fair to say that it's going to take some years, obviously, before it is fully implemented, whether or not the political parties and some of the business organizations are going to take it to court?
The issue is, I mean, when you say it's going to take some years, there are aspects of it that not require to take some years. We will have to talk to our colleagues in health whether the process of phasing it in.
Do you think the public health care is ready for the NHI system?
You'll recall in the budget speech, I mentioned the point that one of the things we needed to do is to invest more in the public health system, and we enumerated in a number of areas where we're putting money into and make sure that the public health system is also ready. We've also provided grants in support of the NHI. Okay.
I want us to talk about these two significant developments now in the country's investment space. I mentioned Shell, but there's BHP as well. So I'd like us to talk with BHP's offer to buy Anglo American. Anglo rejected the second offer from BHP. Are you surprised as government that they didn't want to buy Anglo with its South African assets?
No. No. I'm not going to comment on the offer. That's for the shareholders of Anglo to talk about. You'll recall Billiton has got a history in South Africa when they came in, when they bought Genco, right? And migrated it into Billiton and into Secondly, they also came back. Not the first time that Billiton is coming out of the country. They also came back and spun off a number of commodities, including coal, and created an outfit called South 32. That was Billiton. So it's not something new about Billiton. It's focused on specific commodities. They are commodity focused than a country focused. It's incorrect to think that they are living out of South Africa. They are looking at specific commodities. At the moment, their preoccupation is copper. Mm.
And have you had a meeting with, because I know the CEO of BHP
I know they've met a number of my colleagues, including the president. I've not met them.
Okay. But if, Minister, we are realistic about the kind of environment that exists even for Amplats and for Kumba, which are part of the assets owned by Anglo American, and you look at the business environment with which they operate, whether you talk about Eskom, you talk about the logistics crisis, there are concerns there, because if BHP was to say, these are the assets that we want to get together with the entire company, there are consequences that are going to come, because you don't have energy reliability, but also you still, and yes, progress has been made at Transnet, but that's another challenge that often affects some of its business operations.
There's no doubt that those things could influence investor sentiment. There's no doubt about that. But People who are operating in South Africa and understand the environment. More work has been done. Again, working with business, by the way, and business in South Africa understand and are working with us in dealing with the energy crisis. You can see there's a much improvement as we speak. Some of the people are thinking that it's just an election ploy. It's not. And I was speaking to the CEO of Eskom this morning, who was telling me an interesting story that their frustration at the moment is that there's more supply than demand. There's less demand for electricity and than the Eskom is ready. So that's.
But do you understand why South Africans are skeptical?
No,
We've been subjected through higher stages of load shedding until 3 weeks, 4 weeks before elections.
I understand that fairly well. Let me just say one of the reasons I've got to believe them. I myself took a decision in 2023, and I'm not mistaken, no, 2024, no, 2022, man. I said to Eskom and the minister, let me get my own independent advice. And I employed international experts to look into the challenges in Eskom. One of the critical findings they made was that we must take a knock and take a lot of load shedding while we intensify plant maintenance so that we deal with that issue. That's exactly what Eskom has done, has intensified plant maintenance, and now we're reaping the fruits of that.
And how long are they expecting these amazing fruits to last? Will they last even after the elections?
I think they are.
Even during winter?
Now, winter is a critical period, I don't know, because more demand during that period is critical. I don't know its implication on the system. But I'm saying what we're reaping are the fruits of a planned strategy. Let me go to the logistics. I agree even then in the logistics space, we've had all of the challenges with Transnet. But if you look even on the reports on the economy, I was reading some of the comments by different people on the performance of the economy, and the impact on the logistics is improving. So we hope that these are the areas where once we get those things right, I think the economy is likely to grow.
Is there still going to be money coming from Treasury to Transnet to assist with that turnaround strategy?
No, I budget once. I tabled the budget once in February. I didn't make any provision to fund Transnet in February.
Yeah, and they still said that they would actually need some additional funding.
No, all I'm trying to say, where I'm sitting, where I'm sitting is the budget I tabled in February did not make any provision to fund Transnet.
And there's not going to be any changes? Of course.
No, I'm not saying that. At the moment, there's no provision for that.
Okay. Do you think this was an opportunistic bid by BHP due to the weaknesses that we've seen in the Anglo American share price? So, as you indicated, do you think this is just BHP going with the strategy they normally go with when they are valuing and identifying what kind of assets to go with?
My sense is, I'm not an equity analyst, but I know that people who want to take a company, they look at its vulnerabilities and to what extent it can maximize their own value as a company. So I think that's what BHP saw, some weaknesses that they did in Anglo, and then decided to capitalize on that. That's why Anglo today also came up with a defensive strategy in order to add value to the company and appease its shareholders.
Let's get into Shell now, because they're also selling their shareholding in Shell Downstream South Africa, which includes a network of about 600 petrol stations. The group did indicate that it's not necessarily closing shop. This is just part of their strategy as Shell, in fact, throughout the continent to divest from the Shell sort of downstream business. Are you concerned at all about the sentiments that have been shared about what this message, this communicates, Shell's decision? Because there are some people suggesting this communicates that the country is no longer an investment destination, which is not entirely true, because when you look at inward investment versus disinvestment, there's more
correct.
inward investment.
Yeah, correct. There's more inward investment. I think we must understand that in the context of the globalization and competitiveness globally, companies refine their strategies. In the context of refining their strategies, their markets, they exit their markets, they explore. This is not the first time. We had a similar thing with Engine. And it's interesting enough, another multinational battery trader entered the market. So you are likely to see the same thing with Shell. I don't think it's got nothing to do with South Africa as an investment destination. It has got to do with them refining their strategy. They are also refining the strategy. The hydrocarbon industries are not only refining the destination, they are also refining whether they should be relying on petrol or not.
Yeah, there's a whole clean fuel agenda.
There's a whole range of restructuring in the industry which may impact on that.
Okay. The Central Energy Fund, do you think they would have the money to acquire the business? Would there be interest?
Unless they were to partner with somebody, I don't think they have the balance sheet to do that. But with a partner, they may.
I saw the Business Leadership South Africa CEO, Busisiwe Mavuso, comment on this matter, and she said that the decisions, particularly Shell's decision, could have been reversed if the country had a more predictable regulatory environment and stronger economic growth. And there are other people that have commented also on the dispute between Shell and its longtime BEE partner, TBE Investments. And part of the criticism we've seen on the part of government is, where is government and why are they not helping protect this BEE partner from being, quote unquote, exploited?
Let me just separate two things. The BEE issue and the comment by the CEO on the regulatory environment. It would be interesting because she did not, I read the piece. She did not elaborate on what regulatory environment she's talking about, in particular for that sector. That would be interesting because the regulatory environment, as far as I'm concerned, in that sector was resolved even before the refineries were closed. So it would be interesting to know what regulatory environment is referring. But interesting enough, she also goes to town to explain inward investment since then. You know, she compares that with inward investment. You know, the issue between TBE and Shell, I think, is the dispute between shareholders. The question is, how does government get involved in those disputes between shareholders? I'm not ruling out, because at some point in time, that decision to sell will have to meet certain regulatory requirements.
Which TBE suggests
No. That's the point I'm making. I'm saying you don't put the cat before the horse. You've got to allow the process to follow through and exercise whatever power you have at the time when the regulatory requirements require the intervention.
So there are instances where, as government, you can intervene when there's a dispute of this nature.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, because in this case, this matter has been referred to arbitration. So
yes,
after arbitration, then that's the instances where, as government, you can come in.
Yeah, I'm not familiar. My colleague, the Minister of
Trade and Industry.
No, the Minister of Energy is dealing with this matter. Yeah. Okay.
Now, how do we make South Africa as an investment destination and preserve that, Minister? Yes, we've spoken about what's happening at Transnet and the kind of progress we're beginning to see. We're speaking about the energy availability factor at Eskom and the fact that we have not actually been subjected to load shedding for some time now. But there are also other issues around reforming of legislation, I know visa, there's already regulations that Cabinet has approved that are going to come into play.
They're already in place.
They're already in place. So when it comes to that reform agenda, are you satisfied that this country is still an investment destination and the reform agenda that the President has been speaking about is very much in tune?
Yeah, I mean, quite correctly. I mean, if we've got what we call Operation Vulindlela, which tracks up all the reforms and publishes a report of how far we are dealing with the reforms, I'm quite happy we're in progress in dealing with those reforms. But unless we can get kind of an assurance for society that electricity is stable, the logistics are fine, we're getting a handle of the crime situation, those three main issues are kind of constrained, in my view, to the economy.
And when do you think we are going to have all of these issues as
I'm saying
issues
part
of the past?
Yeah, I've said part of the issues of client, when the electricity fund, there's a plan developed together with business, by the way. On the logistic, there's a road map which we have developed, again, together with business. There's kind of confidence with South African business people that we are on track. They don't take snippets from newspapers, right? Because they understand they've been dealing with these things. They are part of the development of that plan.
Is it difficult when you are engaging with investors out of the country? So when I ask you, for instance, about Eskom and say, when are you going to fix this issue? When is it going to stop being a crisis? What do you say?
Just said the investment community take a different view. Take a different view. And that view is on the electricity front. When are you transitioning to clean energy? That's a kind of question that dominates. Mind you, the dominant investor community are part of largely from the Western world, and which, I mean, the Europeans and Americans and everybody are focused now on the just transition. Yeah. So the debate is not whether you guys are going to have electricity. We know that's a passing phase, right?
But it can't pass forever.
No.
It can't pass for 5 years.
They say, we're already there, right? We're already there. You can now know, you know, how many days without electricity. So the people are posing the question of us just transition strategy. That's where the debate is at the moment.
And what's that strategy? Because it seems to be changing. At some point, we were accepting monies from the European countries, from the West, because we were being assisted in our just energy transition. And then there came a time when government was beginning to almost change the message. Yes, they're still committed to that just energy transition, but they're saying we're also not just going to close down our power stations and be put under pressure, when in fact some of the countries in Europe themselves are realizing that they can't get rid of coal now.
That's precisely the point. Our primary occupation now is security of supply. Then once we can show that our security supply is safe, we then can fast-track the transition to the transition.
Okay, please expand more on that.
What that means, if in the absence of a stable electricity, you don't want to be, I mean, there's a debate in this area as to what is meant by base load. All right, there's a view that you need those technologies that provide you stability, which is coal, nuclear, gas, hydrogen. Now, if you are migrating from coal, you need, in our view, to use gas as a transition because it provides you with the same base load as coal. So that kind of debate, that's the kind of debate, and therefore you will see in the IRP now, there's a more requirement for nuclear and IRP and gas.
I want us, as we wrap up, to talk about the budgetary constraints. There was a time when there was communication from Treasury to the various departments to say, be more cautious in your spending. How are we standing at the moment in terms of the purse?
Last year, we had an unfortunate situation when, as a result of the challenges, particularly in logistic challenges, revenue shortfall from the mining sector in particular, and as a result of our policy, and as a result of our policy, because we provided incentive for renewables, and massive claims to the fiscals in line with those incentives, which shot more than we expected, and therefore we had predicted a revenue short by the end of the financial year. Fast forward, we changed the trajectory. If you can see what we said, some things we said were cutting in October. In fact, we reinstated those expenditures on social services and so on in February. So I think we are on track. When you tell we're on track, you track a number of things. Are we on track in terms of the delivery and funding of the core services? And we say yes.
So those have not been compromised?
Yeah, yes. Secondly, are they done it in a way which is sustainable? In other words, you are not ballooning your debt to GDP, you are not increasing your deficit, you are not increasing your debt service costs? Yes.
Are we not increasing, but our debt service costs are still incredibly at sustainable levels?
But if you look at what you tabled in February, we've tabled a strategy which shows how over the highest peak of our debt, debt to GDP will be the year 25-26. After 25-26, you'll begin to decline.
Lastly, Minister, South Africans who are listening to us and are anticipating this signing of the NHI bill by the President tomorrow, and they're wondering, we have seen some politicians who take advantage of even moments of crisis, whether it's the COVID-19 or any other situation where comrades decide this is an opportunity for us to steal. What guarantee as government do you make to South Africans that we're not going to see corruption when it comes to the NHI?
Let me just correct this thing. There's a perception that the people who take advantage of these things, you can check all of those people who have been arrested for PPEs, whether they are politicians or not, you know.
Well, it doesn't mean politicians.
No, but you said to politicians. Let me just say the issue. How do we make sure that South Africans would steal and would loot government funds are dealt with? That's a key challenge. So in every arrangement, when you create this fund, there must be checks and balances and how it is funded and how it is managed and how transparent that management is. And there's no reason why we can't do that in the healthcare situation when our budgetary process as a whole, by the way, has been analyzed by the IMF, contrary to everybody that is the second in the world in terms of providing information and being transparent.
Why haven't those checks and balances been finalized already?
You know, let me just tell you, I'm not saying, you can't say have not been finalized in terms of NHI. The COVID-19 was an emergency situation, which, because of that emergency situation, certain things were done on an urgent basis and therefore couldn't build up balance and checks, and people find the opportunity and during that crisis because there was an emergency situation. When we are constructing the NHI fund, we're not constructing an environment where we've got to build all of those things into place.
All right. There are some tweets that have come through at Face the Nation SABC. We've got Reverend Nongaba who says, Clement, I'm highly excited that the President is signing the NHI bill into law tomorrow. Actually, it is long overdue. As I'm a health expert, I think this is the way to go. Equitable and affordable health for all is what we fought for pre-1994. Apartheid, segregated health. This is the best law. Lungelo says, Clement, it cannot work. Why does government need to introduce it? Because all government-run institutions are a disaster. Pel Mashaba says, when I go for a checkup in a former private healthcare facility, will the NHI be active as soon as tomorrow after the president's signature? Well, Pel, I think you know the answer to that now. The big answer is no. This is not necessarily going to be the case. Am I correct?
Yeah, not tomorrow.
Things are not just going to change immediately after tomorrow. Minister, thank you so much for making time for us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming through. After the break, we're going to be joined by TBE's Investment Corporation Director, Dr. Molefe Tsile. Stay with us here on Face the Nation. Welcome back. Now, TBE Investment Corporation has confirmed that it's in a dispute with Shell over the value of its 28% stake in the company. The matter has now been referred for arbitration, and this comes in the wake of the oil giant's announcement that it is divesting from Shell Downstream South Africa, which includes a network of about 600 petrol stations nationwide. However, TBE says Shell's relationship with the company is not the reason for Shell exiting the country. TBE Investment Corporation Director Dr. Molefe Tsile joins me now to chat more about this dispute. And of course, TBE as a BEE partner. Dr. Tsile, thank you so much for joining us tonight on Face the Nation. Good evening.
Good evening, Clement.
How has the relationship been over the years? And maybe that's where I need to start, because you have been with Shell for
24
years now.
This year.
How has that relationship been since the inception?
22 years to be correct.
Yeah.
Let me start by saying that the relationship started 2002. Mm-hmm. And over the years, quite honestly, we believed in this sector. We saw it as a sector that will fuel the future of growth. And we were also mindful when we entered, by the way, there were not a single black player in the sector of the fuel industry. And so therefore, to characterize a relationship, we may call it a marriage of about 22 years. It has its ups and downs, but mostly at the beginning, it was beneficial for both. Mm-hmm. And maybe one of the important things to note, therefore, is that it has a very complex relationship of a global player against a minority local player. Mm-hmm. And therefore, there are certain things that they needed from us. Procurement credits, especially when it comes to doing business with government, with ESCOM. So they needed TBE. Mm-hmm. And of course, we also wanted to play in that sector. Mm-hmm. And so it is a mixture of relationship in terms of the 22 years, give or take.
So when did you decide as TBE Investments that now you want out, you want to sell your shares?
I would say that by 2015, when we increased our stake from 25% to 28,
yeah.
We began, because at that time we merged two streams of the business, which was the marketing business, Shell South Africa marketing, and the refinery business into one. And we began to realize that the capital needed to play in that space was massive. The refinery wasn't doing well, and so the dividends basically dried up from 2015 onwards. No dividend, zero. Up to today, by the way, 2015 up to today. Now, at that time, we began to divest into the renewable energy as a company, into other sectors, and we began to say, you know what, this asset sits in our balance sheet. The institutions who can give us equity loans, they still believe in this asset. Why don't we cash it and use that money elsewhere? For example, reduce our debt in our balance sheet. So the decision was taken towards the time when TBE was celebrating 30 years, which was 2022. Just prior to going towards that, we did a strategy plan, and we began to say, maybe we've stayed in this asset for too long. At that time, it was about 20 years. And so we then went back to how do we therefore begin to talk to one another and give safe notice that we think that we want to exit.
So at what point then did you start having disagreements around how much the shares are valued?
I would say let's start basically and I think it's important to start this, that the deal we did was not the typical BEE deal. Firstly, we paid full market value, completely full market value, absolutely no discount. So it was not a BEE deal. They didn't do us any favor. We took our company called TEPCO, Tebe Petroleum Corporation, which we had faith in it. We had a business plan about this TEPCO. And then we borrowed money from the banks. And then that constituted our stake. And so by the time we're exiting, we actually had a clear understanding of what is the value of the stake. Firstly, if you had taken all that money and put it in a bank for 20 years, you'd know how much it'd give you. And therefore, we're asking nothing less or more than what was the value. Number one is the value that has been carried in the books, both of Tebe and their books, that has been the independent valuations by some of the top 4 auditing companies had consistently year after year done that value. So it was
valuing
not a
the
surprise.
shares.
Exactly. So what is the value of our 28%? It was known. This. At that point, we began to sense that, no, we're really dealing with a different type of people. They were insisted in making sure that we leave with nothing. And we just felt this is not fair. Initially, as a shareholder, I didn't believe that a company can treat its shareholder, minority shareholder like that. And when our representative in the board came and began to tell us that, hey, it looks like the relationship is not good, I took a position that I don't think we should, this is a relationship we've had with them, let us engage them at the top, even if it means we go to London. As a result, I had a meeting with the chairperson of Shell South Africa and a representative from London in order to explain to them what is our strategy, why are we exiting, we're happy with everything, but it's time for us to move. And the meeting was cordial. Unfortunately, we began to see that they were determined to make sure that we leave with zero.
Okay, what is the issue then, Dr. Tsile? Because if they're independent valuation experts who, over the years, have consistently said, this is the value of the shares,
exactly.
On what basis then does Shell come and say your shares are worthless when you want to sell?
Well, I don't want to minimize the problem, the core of the problem, except to say that there is number one, serious bullying by a global party. Let me give an example when I talk about bullying. You agree that you are going on an arbitration, and you agree that it's independent. So you appoint senior counsels. You say, okay, give us 3, bring your 3, and another of the 6, let's appoint maybe, let's say 3 to come with a number. First thing they say is, okay, whatever number they come with is not final. So you say, but why is it not final? Because there's an arbitration process that is independent that we agree with. Number 2, we propose and agree that we're going to have 3. You present your 3, and it takes 3 months up to today. They've not yet presented their 3. We're still waiting. Now, how do you deal? What does it mean to you? Clearly, there is a bullying, there is bad faith, and unfortunately, there is also an arrogance of believing that in any way, we're going to benefit upstream. Why should we even look? And it's not doing us a favor. You know, I've followed the social media. That is a narrative that says these BEE guys are greedy, entitled, etc. In this case, this is a unique deal that was done pre-BEE years, where we took our company. In fact, at the time, we're 100% owners of this company, TEPCO. The competitions tribunal almost declined to approve the deal, to say, are you mad? Why do you take your 100% owned company to go and be 25% shareholder in a global company? We therefore said, no. We have a plan, and we think that partnering with a global company will help us. And now that global company is basically showing us the flames by simply delaying, very basic thing. When you depend on the value in your book, and then you engage them, and they tell you that the person who's supposed to respond to your letter is on holiday.
Based on your own valuations or the valuations that have been done, what's the value of your share now, of the 28%?
Well, I'm not sure how protected that information is, because also we want to allow the independent process to come with a figure. And we're talking about a process that has been accepted, that looks into all the discount, the marketability of our shares, and everything that goes in. And we're saying, come with a number, but don't come and say your shares are zero, really. Zero, you take, we invested $73 million US.
This is how much you put up
We
when
put
you
up
got into shares.
over the 22 years.
So when they say your shares are zero, that means you're walking away. You've put in this 73 million.
Yes,
And
nothing.
you walk away with
and,
nothing.
And they actually proudly want to say, well, you know, this is how it is. And it troubled us. How can a global corporate player be so unethical in its dealings? And engage in bad faith, not respond to letters, not acknowledge letters, and think that they can then go and talk to the minister and brief the minister and misrepresent, by the way, the state of affairs to the minister. They met Mr. DMR, and all they said to him when he asked, they said, no, our relationship with TBE is very good, everything is fine, but it's time for us to shift. They don't even tell him the truth, that TBE, by the way, has told us that they want to go out.
Yeah. What did the PwC calculations say?
Well, all of us, it's very interesting. We were all by the PwC calculation, although I don't want to put them on the spot. But they themselves had their own valuation, another one of the top 4 auditing companies, which incidentally arrive at the same value as PwC. And like I say, you know, when you have been audited, you have given value year after year, just at the time when people say, based on the historical value, now we want to move away. Then you say, sorry, there's been floods in KZN, they destroyed the refinery. Sorry, there is the war in Ukraine. Sorry, there is this, therefore, your value is zero. By the way, all those things just happen, have no impact on the value at the date that we are putting. It's them saying, looking at the business going forward, we think we're going to lose money. We don't say therefore, and there's nothing. It is maybe true that they're going to lose money going forward, but it has nothing to do with legally. On the 11th August 2022, when we placed our put,
this is where the valuation
that is
was
the
at.
date that you must actually say, on this date, what is the value?
Yeah.
Not 12 months, 9 months down the line when certain things may happen.
What options then are available for you as TBE Investments? I know the matter has been referred for arbitration.
Well, for us at Clement, firstly, we don't want to destroy the value of the company. We don't even want to badmouth it. It's a very good company. It has value. That is why we don't believe the story that it's zero. Number one, Shell is a good company. Anybody who will move in there is going to inherit a good company. The issue, therefore, is let us, firstly, in good faith, engage in independent arbitration, do it speedily. You can't have a situation where you write a letter, 3 months down the line, there's not even a response to that, which means, you know, they are so artificial. And just to show you the bad faith, it's almost like they can come one meeting, present the plans, these are the numbers, all you approve, and then 2 months later, they say, well, sorry, the numbers we presented last meeting, actually, they're not right. These are the new numbers. You ask the reasons, they don't actually have any obligation to give you the reasons. It's such bad faith. I can't believe, so unethical, I can't believe. But we're talking about these partners who are with us in Shell Downstream South Africa, who are now saying they want to leave South Africa.
What do you make as TBE Investments of that decision?
Of course, it's every company has got its right to evaluate its strategy. We're not the first country they've left. And of course, for them, they figure that they can make more money, they're more experts in upstream, explorations, etc.
Yes.
For example, the space of refinery is being squeezed because people now prefer to import refined goods. It's okay, it's a line of business. And we wish them well, by the way, because we do believe that, believe it or not, there are other people who have confidence who will buy that stake. But they must just do right with their minority partners here. And we chose, by the way, we decided ourselves by, as I say, by Tebe 30, when we were celebrating our 30 years, to say we want to move out of the sector. Before them, and that is why we placed our put to them to say, 28%, as the shareholders agreement provides that when it is right time, anybody can leave. They have a choice, therefore, to can see what they do.
And to be clear, based on the structure of this partnership, you can only sell to Shell.
Of course, yes. That's what the Shell, which was an issue. They wanted us to bring a buyer. We said, no, that's not what the shareholders agreement says. They say we put our shares back to you.
To you.
You can then do a bidding.
You
can then advertise and say, and by the way, even that time gives them 2 years to say, you don't have to find a partner now, but you note our decision to put a put. Then we give you 2 years for you to identify a BEE partner. It's between you and them what you agree on, except that Shell we as Tebe are out from the day we exercise our put.
Okay. Do you think government should have intervened or should intervene? Because the Black Business Council feels that there's a role that government can play in protecting BEE companies from being quote-unquote exploited by these big conglomerates.
We really were taken by surprise because we didn't expect there is even a role for government at that point. Because there was not really anything strange. It is a matter of we are partners, we have decided to place our shares, and we avoided even to involve the government. I mean, we can, but we avoided, it was not necessary. Unbeknownst to us, behind our back, they were briefing the government a completely different story. To say, no, everything is fine and so on. They lied basically to government.
So do you think government should be intervening now?
Of course they must, and must take a hard line. They must come to the part. The only issue is one. Don't do us a favor, Estelle. We don't want a favor. Insist on independent mediation speedily. And we are saying whatever the mediation comes with, whatever number they come with, it must bind everybody. We'll accept it. If the independent mediation says, sorry guys, 0, we'll walk away.
Dr. Molefetsile, thank you so much for making time for us tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And thanks to you for watching Face the Nation tonight. We'll be back again on Thursday at 8 p.m. Have a good evening. Cheers.